when I'm doing it, because we got the intros, the extras, and a couple other minor bits in here, so that, like I said, it's recorded live to tape.
Cool.
All right, we're live. All right, this is a bit of a pre-stream, everyone. Welcome to the show. I've got Phil's story here, but we got full intros coming in just a few minutes, and it will be a very entertaining show. And since we're rolling up to the time, a little bit of music, carry us up to full showtime.
These are the days of thunder. We're gonna make time stand still. A quarter after midnight, and I'm watching the wall. Sometimes I feel so uptight, I just can't sleep at all. Every day doing the same old thing, we're losing time. The weekend comes, we gotta have some fun and rewind. These are the days of thunder. We're gonna make time stand still. We gotta feel the hunger, hanging over the edge just to taste the thrill. I feel the rope tightening, choking off our air. We need to grab some lightning. Friday's almost here. Caught in a web, we need to cut this thread we're hanging by. Where is it said you have to be half dead to survive? These are the days of thunder. We're gonna make time stand still. We gotta feel the hunger, hanging over the edge just to taste the thrill. These are the days of thunder. We're gonna make time stand still. We gotta feel the hunger, hanging over the edge just to taste the thrill. These are the days of thunder. We're gonna make time stand still. We gotta feel the hunger, hanging over the edge just to taste the thrill. These are the days of thunder.
There we are. It is time.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is time for WordPress plugins A to Z, not Z.
Welcome to WP Plugins A to Z. It's episode 68, Glow Behind the Glow, Phil Storey's journey to SaaS success. And we're off. WordPress, the king of content management systems, powering the web with over 80,000 plugins to choose from. How do you sort the junk from the gems? Welcome to WP Plugins A to Z, where we've been keeping the pulse of WordPress alive for over 16 incredible years. Join us every week for an unrehearsed, real talk breakdowns of the latest and greatest plugins, developer and community member interviews. Some weeks, Amber and I team up to dig in. Others, I'm flying solo, unpacking WordPress news, demoing a standout plugin, or sharing tips to power up your site. No scripts, no fluff, just the good stuff from A to Z. So plug in and let's get rolling. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you happen to be hiding out there on the globe today. Coming to you direct from the brewery overlooking beautiful southern Vancouver Island. I'm John Overall. And in today's show, we're journeying through the radiant WordPress cosmos with a true innovator who's transforming how agencies shine. Phil Storey, the founder of Glow, joins us to share his decade-long enterprise in WordPress agency support and maintenance. We'll dive into his insights on building reliable, reoccurring revenue, streamlining processes, educating clients, crafting price strategies, and delivering real value through care plans. Lessons honed from years of speaking with agencies about what truly works. Plus, we'll explore Glow's origin story and Phil's vision for his future, whether you're a plugin enthusiast or a WordPress agency owner. This episode is packed with a glowing wisdom you won't want to miss. Welcome to the show, Phil. I hope that wasn't too much for you.
No, that was great. Thanks, John. Thanks for having me. I'm loving the amount of Glow puns you managed to get in a couple of minutes.
You know,
impressive.
I only tripped over one or two.
No, it's good to be here, mate. Thank you for having me. Excited to be on the show.
Well, I was glad when you reached out to me, and when I looked into it, and it's like, wow, okay, this is kind of cool, because I've been working myself trying to get my agency moving forward in the right direction. And you've been doing a lot of things. You had a few suggestions on things you want to talk about here. And, you know, there's just some really great stuff that is happening. And WordPress itself is moving in unique directions right now. Nobody knows absolutely what's going to happen and how it's going to flow. But the software itself, I believe, is not going anywhere. And the way it's going to be managed is going to change. So tell us a little bit about who Glow is and where it came from.
Yeah, sure, man. So, I mean, you mentioned it briefly in the intro about my career. So, yeah, just over 10 years, really. So, I actually have a degree in construction. So, like, it was a completely, like, unrelated. I mean, a lot of people have done that, right? They have a degree that's got absolutely nothing to do with what they're actually doing now, right? So, a lot of money spent, a lot of time spent at university to end up basically doing absolutely nothing to do with what I spent all that time and money on. But, you know, that's life. But it ultimately, you know, that change of direction for me did lead me to today, you know, and running Glow. So, yeah, I mean, I guess a little bit of background would be that I ultimately sort of stepped out of that construction world after university and taught myself, you know, HTML and CSS, right? There was a really good website. You may have come across it yourself at some point, John, or anybody listening. It was called lynda.com.
I do remember that one.
Yeah, I think they were California based. And I think LinkedIn bought them in the end, actually. But it was just like an amazing resource of tutorials and videos on like how to do and, you know, how to start, you know, careers in web and graphic designs and video production, you name it, kind of, they had everything on there. And that was really my sort of starting point into the world of web design. This is obviously before I set my business up, but it was there that I came across WordPress for the first time. And that was, it was around sort of 2010, 2011. And up to that point, I'd kind of been building sort of, you know, as you do when you start out a web design business, building websites for like your family members in the local town, the local area. But they were all sort of static HTML and CSS stuff. So when I came across WordPress, it was kind of a bit of an eye opener for me, really. And that really began, like I said, sort of a 10, 15-year career of running a web design agency. Part of that on my own with a small team, part of that in a partnership with somebody else. So we ended up splitting.
Right.
We had a team of about 7 or 8 of us at one stage there. But a big part of what I've always done in my web design agency career is offer an ongoing support and maintenance service. So we always had that as a service offering.
Right.
And throughout that time, used kind of a different combination of tools, which ultimately led me to starting Glow, because we could never quite find one that did exactly what we needed it to, really. We were sort of always mishmashing other ones together. So really, Glow started originally as something for our business. We just wanted to create something that we could use for our business internally. And then, of course, we realized the opportunity to expand that a bit further. And maybe, you know, other agencies around the world might have also wanted that. So I'm pleased to say we've been proven right about that, of course. So, yeah. That's a bit of an intro, I guess, into kind of where we came about.
Well, the maintenance part of WordPress is partly what kept my business going during the slow periods. You know, that, and of course, my big thing when I got into this was web hosting, which I still do. I still run a boutique hosting service with, you know, a few servers and limit the clients I get. But the maintenance was also a major component, especially after you spend a lot of time creating a website for a client and everything. Then you want to keep them as a client and make sure they always have that fantastic site you just built.
Yeah, exactly. And that was probably something that I got into. It was maybe like a year after I set up in business. Obviously very new to business generally. I can actually vividly still remember sitting in my parents' kitchen, talking to them about my web design business, how it was going. And I remember saying to them, it's going quite well. Like we're getting, project work in. I joined a local networking group, and it was just amazing for generating new clients. But I didn't have that recurring revenue, and as you were saying, how that sort of saved you on more than one occasions in sort of quiet periods of project work. I didn't have that at that point, and I knew I really needed to create that recurring revenue to sort of, I guess, future-proof the business in a way for exactly the sorts of situations that you described there. So, yeah, that was something I guess I managed to get into sort of setting up fairly on in my career, in my journey as running a web design business. So, yeah, I think it's an absolutely crucial part of any web design business, right? Is that ongoing support revenue that you can create.
So, talking about that, what would you say could be some of the biggest mistakes you've seen WordPress agencies make when setting up their support and maintenance plans for their clients?
It's a good question. Well, not selling them at all.
that's a major one. Yes, not selling them.
Yeah, I have come across that more often than you would think, and
Really?
actually and with agencies that are. I mean, I don't have any data on this, but if I was, finger in the wind, I would say that the smaller agencies, the one-person operators, small agencies, have it together better with the whole support and maintenance offering than the sort of the larger agencies. And that, again, like I said, no data to back this up, but just my experience of talking to hundreds and hundreds of different agencies over the last few years, I often come across those who are very established agencies doing very, very well. They offer, like a plethora of services. So they've got the full digital offering of SEO, PPC, social, email marketing, and web design and kind of support is just kind of one of the services that they might offer. But typically speaking to a lot of those, they've sort of spent their years as an agency building sites and hosting them. Right. You mentioned hosting a minute ago. Right. They always sell the hosting, but I've spoken to so many that never sold the sort of the ongoing and support and maintenance. And not only did they not sell it, whenever they then got asked to do any of that work by the client, they just did it for free. So, and it's quite amazing because honestly, like you talk to some of these agencies who clearly they've got their, shit together generally because they've, they're an established agency, but they're some of them, they could be missing out on, 10, 15, 20K a month. Some of these agencies, they've got hundreds of sites that they've built over the years, right? And never sold this support package. So that's one thing. Not selling it is obviously a mistake. I think that the moment in which they decide to try and sell it would be another mistake. So commonly, agencies will kind of leave the conversation of maintenance and support to after they've built the site. And if you think about that from the client's perspective, all along the journey, you've been telling them, we're going to build you a site and it's going to cost you $5,000 or whatever it is. Right. No mention of maintenance and support, and it's a 10-week project. And you get to the end of the 10 weeks and the agency goes to the client, right, you now need to choose a maintenance package. It's going to be $100 a month. And the client goes, whoa, well, you didn't tell me about this before we started working together, right? So I think naturally that then becomes a harder sell, right? Because you're sort of surprising the client with it. You may obviously convert some still if you do a good job of it, but you're gonna have a much better chance of converting that client onto a maintenance package if you talk to them about it up front and you put it in your proposal and you tell them about the quality of your aftercare and show them some reviews from customers who love your support service and that sort of stuff. So I think there are a couple of key ones really, John, in terms of
absolutely. That sounds like a big one there. That's to make sure you approach them while you're in the middle of the project to get them used to the idea of, hey, yes, it's costing this much to build it, but there's ongoing maintenance. It's like having your car.
Yeah.
You've got to change the
That's
oil,
it.
fix the
Yeah.
tires. You know, you've got the house you own, but yet you still got to occasionally clean the plumbing, you know,
That's it.
and,
Yeah.
you know, mow the lawn, you know, the maintenance, the stuff that just
Yeah.
goes because, well, it's not so much that websites wear out, it's that technology advances too fast. And if they're not keeping up with it, the website quits functioning. And
Exactly. And that car analogy is one that I used to use quite often, actually, just to try and help, particularly the least technical clients kind of try and understand a bit more about it. But often you didn't even need that, really. If you just did a good job of explaining why the support and maintenance package is needed afterwards, if you did a good job of that in the proposal stage up front, it's quite an easy sell, really, because even for those smaller clients that don't have much of a budget, most businesses, as long as they're a decent business and they're making some money, they can afford £50, $50 a month, right, to make sure that their website is protected.
Right.
And then you can obviously upsell them onto higher packages if they want some more support, or it's an e-commerce website that needs more or whatever, you know.
Well,
so
also, one of the nice things I found is a client that starts small, as they grow, their needs increase, and you just increase the cost to them appropriately as their needs increase.
Yeah, precisely. And it's obviously very easy to do that, isn't it? So, I think there's almost sort of no reason, you know, why you wouldn't sort of sell a support and maintenance package, I think. And that whole, you know, when to sell it thing is such a crucial part of it, because, you know, those larger agencies that I described earlier who, you know, they've been established for 10, 15 years, they've been building websites and hosting them, but not maintaining them. I've spoken to plenty of those now, and they're kind of like, well, we get it, but how do we now go back and sell maintenance to these websites where, you know, we've been hosting it for $300 a year for 10 years, and now we're saying it's going to be $50 a month for maintenance as well? You know, that's hard, right? That's very hard to do.
That's a tough one. Yes,
it's a tough one.
Been down that road myself.
Yeah, I did in the early days as well, but it's a tough one. I think you can always start now, though, with new projects. So you can just say, and I know a lot of agencies now that they just mandate it. So they just say, you know, if you're coming to us for a proposal on your website, you will be going on to a maintenance and support package after we've built this website, if you want to work with us. Yeah. And if you don't take that, you're not working with us, kind of thing. You know, good luck or whatever.
It's the way to keep them there and keep them doing what you need to do.
Yeah, it is for sure.
So you'd mentioned before, you know, you were interested in talking about setting up efficient internal processes. What do you mean by that?
This will be on the application that I put onto
it would be.
show, wouldn't it?
It would
Which
be.
was about 2 months ago.
I'm pulling notes from everywhere, you know. Sometimes
efficient internal processes. Yeah. I mean, it's not the most exciting topic in the world as a headline, but it's important, right? In any business. I think if I'm sort of relating that directly to running a web design business, which obviously I did for many years, and I'm sure quite a few people listening to this might be in the same position. I think for me, it's one of the most important things to make sure that you do well, right? To help you grow the business is have efficient systems and processes. It's one of those things that I remember when I was starting out in business, whenever I used to attend like local networking events and anybody used to stand up and talk about systems and processes, I'd always think, not that important. You know, I'm not going to speak to those guys. And that, obviously that was silly of me to be like that, but that's how I was in the early days. I was more sort of, we need to get the sales, we need to get clients, but like that, that was the big focus, which obviously is important as well. But if I could wind the clock back there to my sort of day one in business, I would be setting up, systems and processes that have, detailed, written explanations of how we do everything in the business. And it makes everything easier, right? It makes customer support easier, customer success easier. It makes onboarding new members of staff easier, right? Because everything's documented. But I mean, it's such a big topic. I mean, obviously, generally, it could also include the actual software you use, right? And making sure that
let's break it up just a little bit then.
Yeah, sure.
When you're talking about, say, you've got a business, either you've been going a while, you haven't done the internal processes, or you're starting from scratch, where would be the beginning stage of beginning to create the internal processes? What would you do?
I would be personally, I would document what you do every day. So, I mean, again, I'm not sure exactly who's listening to this show. It might be if it's one person operators, this is going to be easier for me to explain. If it's teams of people, then it's different. But I imagine the same kind of rules apply generally.
It's
right?
a little bit of everyone who listens to the show.
Yeah. Okay.
We got your very beginning WordPress listeners, and we've got just a few agencies that listen to us.
Okay. Cool. I think just documenting what you do would be an obvious first step, right? So this is nothing new, right? That I'm explaining here either. I'm sure we've all heard this many times before from different places, right? But literally, if you've got nothing in place at the moment in terms of internal systems, processes, documentation, I think for the first week or 2 or 3, it's just writing down literally what you do each day. Yeah. So today it might be, appear on John's podcast, and tomorrow, and respond to emails, and then update the accounting software, and then talk to the developers about the new feature, whatever that might be. Mm-hmm. Open a spreadsheet in Google Sheets and just write it down. Monday, I did A, B, C, D, E, and just for now, just create a list. Yeah. So then once you're sort of 2-3 weeks in, you're probably going to be repeating stuff you've already written down. Yeah, because there's only a certain amount of things that we do, right, in running a business. So I think once you've then got that initial list, it's then going a level deeper and writing down, what, not just what you did, but how did you do what you did? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you could use a tool like Notion or Google Docs or anything really. I mean, Notion's very good in how it brings things together, actually, I think, and it is something that we use, having previously tried to do it in Docs, but you can set up a free Notion account and split your business into the core areas, and then write down, the extra detail of that list that you've created for 2 or 3 weeks. So you can split your business into, the marketing function, sales, operations, products and services. Keep it to those broad categories, and then go into each one of those and write down the relevant things that you do. And then, if you're off sick, or somebody comes in that's new, or you've got a new support person, or a customer asks a question about, how do I do this? Or a client says, what did we agree here? Or how can I do this with my website? Everything's written down. Yeah. And you don't have to keep coming up with the, different answers each time. You just go and pick that answer and give it back to the client. So like I said, it's a very broad topic, right? And that's an example of what you could do to sort of start getting a little more efficient if you don't have those things in place already. And then obviously another part of that whole thing is the actual tools that you use, right? So the software that you use each day to help you, automate a process that you're doing manually at the moment, or save the business some money by using one tool that does the same as 3 different ones that you're using at the moment, for example. So I think it should be something that, just as business owners generally, we should just review you could review it monthly, or you could review it quarterly, or every 6 months. Just do that little internal review of systems and software and processes in the business, and can you make any cost savings, or can you make something take a bit less time, or all of these little gains just ultimately help you run a more efficient business and a more profitable one as well.
Oh, absolutely. And that's the one thing that's important, is to make it a more profitable business. Thinking of profits, you've also made mention in that little thing you sent me, talking about setting up pricing strategies, client education.
Pricing strategies for web design agencies.
What's that?
Did you say pricing strategies for web design agencies?
Well, for web design agencies, delivering value through support care plans.
Oh, specifically related to care plans. I see. Yeah. I think, it's just something I've been focusing on quite a lot in the last few months. I'm creating like a document at the moment on kind of pricing generally in the WordPress care plans market, because it's a question that I guess get asked a lot on LinkedIn. So I'm very visible on LinkedIn. I post very regularly, always talking about WordPress. Of course, very often it's WordPress support and maintenance stuff that I talk about. And I often get people commenting or sending me a message in the DMs, about pricing. How do I set up pricing for my website support business, and what should I charge clients? And again, you would be surprised at the size of companies that get in touch and ask this question. There are some decent sized agencies that ask this. So, it's not just, people are just getting going and just setting up a web design business. It's kind of larger, more established teams as well. So It's a common question. It's obviously one that's quite important to make sure that, you're charging the client the right amount of money, but also the right amount of money in terms of being profitable for you in the business. So I think there's a few ways that you can, ensure that you're sort of ticking all of those boxes. I tried a sort of a various, array of setups for pricing for the support and maintenance stuff over the years, sort of changing the number of plans that we offered, certainly changing the kind of price that we offered, changing what we included in each plan. So an example of that was that in the early days, we included website hosting as part of our support packages. And later down the line, kind of remove the hosting out and charge that as a separate amount. So you'd sort of get that annual hosting revenue from the clients, and then also the monthly support and maintenance, because they are different effectively, right? The hosting is, we all know what hosting is, right? We know what that is. And then the support and maintenance is more of the ongoing care and maintenance stuff. So we use them differently, and of course then they are different revenue streams at that point.
They absolutely are two different revenue streams.
Yeah, nice to hear you're in agreement there, John.
Well, I've got a fair number of clients on just plain hosting. I've still got clients on hosting and maintenance, and I think I've got one or two clients that I strictly just do their maintenance because they're hosted somewhere else.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah, that's another thing. I do see quite a few agencies who don't take that on, right? If they haven't built the site, they're not doing the maintenance. But everybody's different, I guess, with that.
Well,
just a choice, isn't it?
A lot of mine are. A lot of my clients I've had for 8+ years, and some of them came to me back in the day when they preferred to stay with whatever hosting provider they were. And it's like, okay, fine, I can work with this hosting provider because they're very similar to my server setup. There's been a couple of hosting providers. They want me to say, you know what, unless you move, I'm not touching it. Because it's just so different, because anyone who knows anything about hosting realizes that every server is set up just a little bit different. Yeah,
exactly. It's not worth the risk either, usually, right? For one client, most of the time, at least, it's not worth taking it on, and then some kind of issue happening and you not having a clue how to resolve it for them, right? Yeah, that's only ever going to reflect badly on you, isn't it? So, yeah,
absolutely. So, a piece of advice you could give a WordPress agency just starting to offer maintenance service, what would you give them to help ensure long-term success?
Ooh, good question. A couple of things. Make sure you charge the right amount of money. Now, obviously, people are in different parts of the world listening to this, but I think just don't be cheap, right? Because again, I've seen this. I start. By the way, this is all from experience and learning myself. So. What you're offering the client there is a very valuable service, very valuable. Number one, just actually being there to help them when they need it. That is immensely valuable, because the amount of web developers out there who build sites for clients and then disappear, and the client can never get hold of them. There's unfortunately still too many of them.
Mm-hmm.
So the fact that you are offering this service and saying, look, if you need us, we're here, and you can reach us, Monday to Saturday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., whatever it might be, and really just giving that quality aftercare service, that is extremely valuable. Alone, that's extremely valuable. But then add on all of the other stuff that you're doing for them from a maintenance perspective, keeping things backed up, monitoring uptime, updating plugins, monitoring performance, whatever those things are, checking for security vulnerabilities and fixing them proactively. Mm-hmm. When you think about the client, their website, it very often is like that. It should be their best salesperson for a start. So it's very often like their livelihood, particularly for these smaller clients that lots of us have had. And having it very well looked after is a massive thing, in ensuring the success of their business. So if you rock up and you say, yeah, it's £10 a month for me to support and maintain your site, it's like, well, it's so much more valuable than that, the service that you're providing. So that's number one, is like, think carefully about your pricing and make sure you charge, a good amount of money. Obviously, you don't have to rip them off. Of course, I'm not suggesting that, but just don't make it so cheap that it's, you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot, really, I guess, from day one.
Right.
So that would be number one, charging the right amount of money. I think number two is always add it to your proposals of web design projects. So if a client is coming to you and you've got to the stage of writing a proposal for them, whatever your process looks like for sales, it invariably comes to a point where you write a proposal for them. So in that proposal, always add a section. I mean, you might have it templated, right? But or in that template, make sure you have a section for care plans or support and maintenance packages or whatever you want to call it. List your plans, list the prices of each one, and what's included in each one. And then when you are then presenting that proposal to the client on a video call or in person or whatever, spend some time during that proposal presentation on support and maintenance and explain to them, this is what's included, this is how we're going to look after you, this is how you can get hold of us, here are the plans for you to choose from, and here's, John from, X company who absolutely loves our support service, and here's what he said about it. Spend time on that. Now, obviously, you're trying to sell them a new website, so that will form the majority of the presentation, but don't miss that support and maintenance bit, because it's an easy part to sell, and it's the right time to sell it. And when the project comes to an end, it's just, okay, which of the packages do you want to select? And it's not a surprise because you've already talked to them about it. So I could probably go on forever, John, about that, right. But I think they would be my two main ones, really.
That's quite all right. Well, that leads us up to talking about Glow itself and what Glow offers, because to be honest, until you reached out to me, I hadn't even heard of you. Okay. So I did do a little research down into it and wandered through your website a little bit, and I found, okay, it's a WordPress maintenance, forget the term, platform for people, agencies or whatever, managing multiple sites to be able to manage them in one area. But you have some features that I've never seen from any of the other offerings out there, such as WP Manage, and there's a dozen or more of them doing this. Yeah,
there's a few these days. Yeah.
Well, I've seen a lot of them come and go over the years.
Yes, true, that as well. Yeah.
But you've got options here, such as a support ticket service, client reports, backups, uptime reports, timeline, multiple sites, team. There was another couple items in there that I thought I saw, such as some stats and other things. So tell us a little bit about Glow and what your offerings are from that.
Yeah, sure. So I briefly mentioned at the start how Glow came about without adding too much detail at that point. But just to put a bit of a story on it. So when I was running my agency in the UK, we had different systems. Going back to systems, we had different systems in place for handling support and maintenance. So with every support and maintenance package, as the name suggests, you've got the support element and you've got the maintenance element, right? Mm-hmm. So you've got the support bit is clients reaching out and saying, hey, Phil, the contact form's broken on our website. We need it fixing, please. Or John's just joined our team. Here's his headshot and his bio. Please add him to the About Us page, or whatever those fixes and content changes might be. You've got the support element that you're charging the client for. And then you've got the maintenance element where you're updating the plugins and you're taking backups every day and you're monitoring uptime, or whatever that might be. And then the third element is the reporting. Yeah, you're showing the client, for that $100 a month that you're spending with us on support and maintenance, here's all the stuff that we're doing, Mr. and Mrs. Clients. Here's all the value that you're getting for that $100 every month. And we just had everything disjointed. We were trying to handle support requests on email, which works to a point. If you've got a few clients, you can do it on email. Mm-hmm. As soon as you get over, certainly into double figures, you need some kind of ticketing system to help you do that better. Even more so if you've got a team of people. Email's an absolute disaster. That's exactly why ticket systems exist in the first place. And just to labor the point, I guess, a bit on the support side, that is the most important part of this service that you're providing to the client by a distance when you consider client retention. So if you want your client to remain a client for a long time, you better do a really good job of providing support to them when they need it.
Right.
Every client in the world understands the difference between good support and bad support. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
If the support is really good, if the support's really good, they're getting fast responses, the team's empathetic in replying to you, you're not going to leave. Yeah. As a client, you wouldn't leave. There's no reason for you to leave. If the support's really bad and you can't get hold of the agency, or they don't reply for a week, or they're really slow, or they don't answer your request properly, it doesn't matter how good that agency is at updating plugins and taking backups. None of that matters because the support quality is so bad, so the client leaves. So when we were obviously running, when I was running my agency, we were analyzing all of that. We realized that we couldn't stay with email forever to handle support requests. So we got a support ticket system. It was called Freshdesk, actually. You've probably heard of it.
I remember that one. Yeah.
Multi-million-dollar company. It's an amazing ticket system. So we were using that, and we were using Managed WP, which you mentioned before.
Right.
They were the first in this space of WordPress management tools. They got purchased by GoDaddy a few years ago. And that was great. It was great for a time. It helped, when going from nothing to using Managed WP was very good. But we still had things separate, and ultimately we wanted it all in one place for efficiency of our team. They can align around one login, one dashboard, one source of truth for everything for all the sites that we're managing, including support. Right. So support, maintenance, and reporting. And it didn't exist, John. And you've sort of highlighted a minute ago, really, that you've come across features of Glow that you've not seen anywhere else in these platforms before. And
right.
That's because they still don't exist in any of our competitors' products either. So yeah, that sort of marriage of support, maintenance, and reporting in one dashboard is really, I guess, our USP, I suppose. But it's really about that sort of productivity and efficiency of teams being able to just, one dashboard, one login, and they've got everything they need to kind of run that support and maintenance service in the agency. Yeah.
I haven't had a chance to test out your software yet, but one question I've got is, for example, the clients trying to reach out to, you're supporting them. Do they reach out to you through the back end of their website dashboard?
Are you talking here about, as in if you were an agency, your clients or customers of Glow?
No,
your clients.
My clients, because I'm using your service to service my clients, and my clients need to reach out to me. Is there like something in, do I put, because I know this would be put as a plugin onto their site, I assume.
That's right. That's correct.
And then from there, they log into their website to do whatever their weekly updates or their changes or whatever for their content or their products. But is there a link right there that they go, oh, I need to reach out to my support?
Good question. There's two ways your client can raise a support request to the agency. Okay. Yeah. So number one is just by sending an email. Mm-hmm. So the agency, who of course is the Glow customer, they have the Glow account. They are able to set up a couple of white label features, but one of those is a support email address. Okay. Okay. And what that means is when your clients then email that address, that email then gets forwarded into Glow as a ticket. Okay. So for the agency to manage internally from their Glow dashboard, it's just there as an inbox of tickets in Glow. All the client has to do is just fire off an email.
Well, that's the important thing. Is it's easy for the
client.
That's
the important thing, exactly. They can log into kind of their view of Glow as a client and raise a ticket from the dashboard, but this is off the top of my head. The last time I checked the stats, it was something like 94% of tickets raised are by email.
Yes.
So that kind of gives you an idea of what the client wants to do. Yeah, they don't really want to log in. They just want to send an email. So you have both of those options. The one you described is one we're looking at, actually, John. So a link within the WordPress dashboard to raise a ticket as well for the client. It's not something we've added yet, but I'm sure will be something that we add in the future.
It's just one of the ways I think of doing things. It's probably because I spend so much time in a WordPress dashboard.
Yeah, no, it makes sense that you're not the first person to suggest it either. So yeah, I think
so basically the clients reach out to you through a standard email address that you've set
just
up
an email.
to pop into Glow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly right. Yeah.
All right. Now, some of the other items you've got in here, your client reports, you briefly touched on that. What kind of reports does it generate for you to give your clients? And you mentioned white labeling. Is it all white labeled so it doesn't carry Glow's logos or anything when you submit it to your client?
Yeah, exactly. So I always say if I was an agency signing up for a Glow account, the first thing I would do is just add my brand, my logo and color scheme and that sort of stuff. Because you only have to do it once and then it's done forever, basically. So whenever you create reports inside Glow, which you can automate, by the way, so you should just set them up once and then they can run on a schedule. So, send a report to my client on the first Monday of every month, for example, and then Glow will compile and send it every month. And it will come from an email address of your agency as well. It won't say that it's come from Glow, right? It'll say it's come from, my agency or whatever it's called. But in terms of reporting, it's a very sort of slick, smart, modern looking report. It's easy to understand. It's easy to create and customize by the agency. Fully customizable. You could change the page order. You can change the language. If it needs to be in Spanish or French or something else, you can do that as well. And then it obviously just sort of compiles the information about that website from your Glow account based on the work that you've done and the support that you might have helped the client with, the time that you might have spent on various activities. That could all be recorded and added in there.
Okay.
But that automated feature is really nice because it basically just means
So
you just set it up once and then it'll do it.
So there's components
ongoing.
inside Glow account itself. So I'm working on a client site. I make notes inside a Glow account and it compiles it for whatever client is
That's right.
on that. And then that's how it generates the reports. So
exactly right. So let's say you, excuse me, let's say you update 10 plugins for clienta.com and you do that from the Glow dashboard. For each of those 10 plugins that gets updated, it just fires a little note to that website within the Glow dashboard. So you could then go to that website within Glow and it will say, John updated Yoast SEO to version 25 and Phil updated, advanced custom fields to version 5 or whatever it might be.
Okay.
And it just keeps that little, a bit like an activity log plugin, sort of similar to that. It keeps that little record as well.
The activity log is very important. I've learned that one not quite the hard way, but it saved my butt once when a client went in and updated stuff. They broke the site, then blamed me. And when I pulled up the log, it's like, no, you did this. And they're like, oh,
Glow, Glow will do the same. Glow will tell you again any actions that happened in WordPress. It will record.
Okay, so Glow records them if someone makes the actions in WordPress.
Correct.
See that was the key I was getting to, was to make sure it not only records them if you do the actions in Glow, but
that's right.
It goes back the other way. Okay.
And it tells you who did it as well, which is obviously an important piece of the puzzle.
It's a very important piece of the puzzle when something breaks.
It is, mate. Yeah. No, so it kind of runs two ways like that. Now for the time being, in terms of recording actions from WordPress to Glow, it's only actions related to core plugins and themes. So updates, activations, deactivations, installs, deletes. At the moment, it doesn't include sort of, edits to pages or deleting a post. Or we've had a few requests for us to add those things. So we may well do in the future, but at this point, it's just core plugins theme.
There's other tracking plugins that you can use to track that information.
Very true. Yeah.
Every site I build gets one of those so that I know who's doing what.
Yeah, very useful indeed. Yeah.
Learned that one the hard way years ago, is to not just because something goes wrong, you're the one that gets blamed no matter who did it.
Yes, indeed. Yeah. Well, you're the first port of call, aren't you? So.
Yeah. So you've got other little pieces into the site here, such as performance. What is the performance function here for it?
It's an integration with Google PageSpeed Insights. So it's just an automated daily scan of all of your clients' websites. And then it gives you just a nice little sort of neat daily history of those performance scans. So across desktop and mobile, we've all run a Google PageSpeed Insights report before on a website, I'm sure. So you'll see that sort of opportunities section, I think they call it. That sort of tells you to, eliminate render blocking resources and update this and change that and this, that, and the other. So you get that each day. And then in terms of the report that goes to the client, it will just sort of aggregate that performance information. So if you're sending monthly reports, it will show the client, the average load speed in this month, or the average performance score out of 100 for desktop this month or whatever. So there's kind of nothing for the agency to do with that particular feature because it just runs fully automated in the background. But we get a lot of nice feedback about the history section of that. So it sort of shows the day by day, difference in performance scores. It's quite helpful, right? Because if you see that today the performance score is 30% lower than it was yesterday, that tells me that something significant has probably changed on the site, right? You might want to do something about it and check it over. So it's quite helpful.
Dig into it and find out what's up. All right, so you've been emphasizing, the real value of support, and Can you share a success story where an agency using Glow significantly improved their client relationships?
I can't name names.
That's all right.
But we had an agency that managed about, the last time I checked, about 350 websites based in the UK, in north of England, in Yorkshire. And they, firstly, were not using any maintenance system beforehand, which is quite amazing on that number of websites.
That's impressive with that many websites.
Yeah. But they were using email for support.
Ooh.
And as their team was growing, they were just running into issue after issue pretty much every week. So they had emails marked as read that should have been unread because they hadn't been dealt with, and the other way around. They were having to sort of forward emails on to other teammates for them to deal with it. And it was just a mess, basically. So moving it into this one unified dashboard with Glow has saved them hours and hours of time. And really their big reason for doing it, apart from the saving of the time, was their sort of client contract renewals. They run renewals on a 12-monthly basis. And they have a meeting with every client every 12 months to say, this is what we've done. This is why we want you to sign up again. This is how much it's going to cost. And Glow's reporting has been massive for that. So not only the reporting, but the logging of what we were just talking about there. So the logging of any activity that's taken place in WordPress, because they have, I think, about 95% of their plugin updates on auto update in WordPress. Now, a lot of agencies would never do that, as long as they live. But these guys do, because they pretty much build every single website in pretty much exactly the same way, same templates, same set of plugins. Yep. So it's very uniform.
So they have faith in the plugins they use. Okay.
Precisely. So what they really needed from Glow as well was this ability to make sure that Glow records all of those automated updates in WordPress, because they didn't want to have to go and add them in manually for the reports for 350 websites.
Right.
So that's a feature we were talking about a minute ago, where it logs all of that stuff into our timeline feature, is a massive one for them. So yeah, it's been a big one for sort of streamlining their support operations, saving them a lot of time, and then helping with those yearly contract renewals as well with clients. So yeah, that's a good one. But we have agencies managing 5 or 6 sites. We have agencies managing 400 or 500 sites. So it's
you have a nice variation across the board of what it is.
I think it's a good representation of the WordPress ecosystem, really, isn't it? There's lots of us little guys out there, and then there's lots of very established agencies building amazing sites, really, with it as well. So there
is, and over the years, I've seen them grow and come and go, and seen some go from. I've seen a few go from next to nothing to highly successful. Yep. Pretty quickly as well. Yeah. And the WordPress community and WordPress ecosystem has been quite an incredible journey, because I joined it back at WordPress 2.0. So,
okay. Wow. Yeah.
So, well, in the beginning,
still going pretty strong, really.
It's still going very strong. I was part of the teams that helped mix the Kool-Aid to spread the WordPress world. I was in the early WordCamps. I created courses, and I used to teach it at night school here in my local community to people on WordPress. So
cool.
In fact, I still have a couple, 3 clients I got from that time period too.
Wow, that's a long-standing client for sure. That's the reason it's so successful, right? Well, a huge reason for why it's so successful. Right? The whole community aspect is incredible, really.
The whole community aspect is incredible, and where it's been going has been quite interesting, especially the last year.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah.
What I've seen in the last year myself with it is I've seen a resurgence of excitement in WordPress again. Something I haven't seen since the beginning. And partly what I see is a younger generation coming into it. The millennials and the Zoomers that are starting to enter into the internet field.
I mean, there's some amazing products being built for it as well at the moment, kind of extending that whole, that whole ecosystem. That there really is. Seems to be every sort of month that, if I get an update from the WordPress weekly newsletter or WP Founders or whatever, there's always something really cool that someone else has built, which is great, and is a huge part of us keeping the whole ecosystem going, against the threat of competing CMS systems. But the last time I saw some results on the market share and that stuff, it was still impressively strong, right?
Well,
Despite all of those new modern.
It's
SaaS
holding in the 40% range is where it's holding.
Yeah,
And
precisely.
it's really hard to get much past the 40% range unless you happen to be like Google Search, who managed to get so far ahead. But for everything else, 40% of the market is a massive chunk of the market, which means there's lots of opportunity for anyone who wants to enter that market. You know, all you got to do is find your particular niche of that market you want to go after.
That's right. Yep. Millions and millions of people. Yeah. Literally. Yeah.
Quite literally on all of that. Well, that's been all great, Phil. I appreciate you coming. This is the point where you get to tell everyone where they can find you, what they can do, and
nice. Thanks, John. No, it's been a pleasure, mate. Sorry, I cut you off there, but I'll continue, and if you've got another question, feel free. But yeah, best place is the website, right? You know, for Glow generally. So you could Google Glow WP, for example, and would appear nice at the top there. The website itself is getglow.io, so GETGLOW.io. You'll find a lot of the stuff that me and John have just been talking about there. And then, as I said before, I'm very active on LinkedIn. So if you just search Phil Storey on LinkedIn, hopefully I'll appear fairly high on that list of people. But you've seen my face here on the video as well, so you'll notice me there on LinkedIn for my profile as well. But yeah, like I said, always very active on there. Always talking about WordPress support, maintenance stuff. So feel free to sort of say hello there as well. If you're an agency and you're managing multiple sites and you want to do a bit of a better job, and particularly around support stuff, always happy to chat.
Yeah, and for those of you listening in the download for the podcast, you can go watch the video where I've been sharing the screenshots of everything we've been talking about while Phil was talking.
Awesome.
So you can go check out some of the stuff that was highlighted and pointed out on the Glow website. With all of that being said, we're going to let our girl take us on out of here. Don't run away on me, Phil. We'll be right back after the credits here.
Reminders for the show. All show notes can be found at wppluginsa2z.com. And while you're there, subscribe to the newsletter for more useful information delivered directly to your inbox. WP Plugins A to Z is a show that offers honest and unbiased reviews of plugins created by developers because you support the show. Help keep the show honest and unbiased by going to wppluginsa2z.com/donate and set the donation level that fits your budget. Help us make the show better for you by subscribing and reviewing the show at Stitcher Radio, Google Play, and in the iTunes Store. You can also leave us a review on our Facebook page using wppluginsa2z.com/Facebook. You can also watch the show live on YouTube, check out the screencasts and training videos, and remember to subscribe and hit the bell to get notifications of all new videos. Follow the show on Twitter at WPPluginsA2Z. John can also be reached at his website, johnoverall.com, or email him directly, john@wppro.ca. Thanks for joining us, and have a great day.
Thanks for listening to the show. This show is copyright by johnoverall.com. So until next time, have yourselves a good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you happen to be out there on the globe today. Okay, we're still live on YouTube, just so you know. And this is a point here where if we have any last minute things to babble about about your offerings or anything, we can share it with those that hang around on the YouTube channel. So thanks everyone for showing up. Thanks again to Ryan from Influence WP for popping in the show, making a couple of comments.
Oh, cool. I spoke to Ryan a few months ago, actually.
Yeah, I interviewed him.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
Back when I first started doing my interviews again, he was the first interview I did when I started bringing him back.
Oh, nice.
Oh, yeah. He says, tell Phil to quit dodging him.
Sorry, Ryan. Well, it is true. I did speak to Ryan a few months ago, but if I forgot to reply, I apologize, sir. I will be in touch.
No, it's great, and so I do like what's happening, and I do like some of the changes, and I do like what Ryan is creating over on Influence WP. That's quite the system there.
Yeah, if I remember right, part of it is a directory, right? Of
it's a big part is a directory,
plugins
but
and
it's
things
a place where people can actually recommend stuff, and his directory is more about the business offering a discount, not him collecting it as a affiliate.
Yeah,
He's not using affiliate links. The business is offering a discount that they don't normally offer to anyone else. It's a unique discount that's only available there. So
that's right. Yeah, yeah.
And it's becoming quite the system.
Now been. Yeah, no, that's good. That's good to hear. I have now been well and truly reminded to get back to.
Get back to him. Yeah, I put my web hosting business up on that one. So
nice.
That and my podcast. So to get a little more known.
Good stuff, man.
But
awesome.
At any rate, what will happen here is I will email you and let you know when the regular part of the podcast, the just downloadable, goes live. But the YouTube version is live now, and once I finish this, it'll just continue on for everyone else. We managed to hit some decent views, so it's all good. All right, well, thanks everyone on YouTube. We're going to cut the stream there.